Param-vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. Total world victory of Hare Krishna. My name is Sitapati Das, and this is Bhagavad-gita chapter 1, texts 16 to 18. Today I'm joined by two special guests, my wife, Dana Wolf-Alvarez, and Bhakta Peter.
Hola.
We're on our way back from the Kirtan camp. If you find this valuable or interesting, take a moment to share it with a friend. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Bhagavad-gita 1, observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, text 16 to 18. Ananta-vijayam rājā kuntī-putro yudhiṣṭhiraḥ nakulaḥ sahadevaś Sughoṣa-and-Maṇipuṣpaka kāśyaś parameṣv-āsaḥ Śikhaṇḍī mahā-rathaḥ dhṛṣṭadyumno virāṭaś sātyakiś cāparājitaḥ drupado draupadeyāś sarvaśaḥ pṛthivī-pate saubhadraś mahā-bāhuḥ śaṅkhān pratak ananta-vijayam, the conch named Ananta-vijaya, unlimited victory. Rājā, the king, kuntī-putraḥ, the son of Kunti, yudhiṣṭhiraḥ, nakulaḥ, sahadevaś, and Sughoṣa-maṇipuṣpakau, the conches named Sughoṣa and Maṇipuṣpaka. Kāśyaś, the King of Kāśī, Varanasi, and parameṣv-āsaḥ, the great archer, Śikhaṇḍī, also mahā-rathaḥ, one who can fight alone against thousands, dhṛṣṭadyumno, the son of King Drupada, virāṭa, the prince who gave shelter to the Pandavas while they were in disguise, also satyaki, the same as Yudhiṣṭhiraḥ, the charioteer of Lord Kṛṣṇa, and aparājitaḥ, who has never been vanquished, Drupada, the king of Pāñcāla, draupadeyāś, the sons of Draupadi, also sarvaśaḥ, all, pṛthivī-pate, O king, saubhadraś, Abhimanyu, the son of Subhadra, also mahā-bāhuḥ, mighty-armed, śaṅkhān, conch shells, dadmahu, blue, pratak, each separately. Translation. King Yudhiṣṭhiraḥ, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta-vijaya, and Nakulaḥ and Sahadev blew the Sughoṣa and Maṇipuṣpaka. That great archer, the King of Kāśī, the great fighter Śikhaṇḍī, dhṛṣṭadyumno, virāṭaś, the unconquerable Satyakiś, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and others, O king, such as the mighty-armed son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sanjaya informed King Drupada, very tactfully that his unwise policy of deceiving the sons of Pandu and endeavoring to enthrone his own sons on the seat of the kingdom was not very laudable. Laudable means praiseworthy. The signs already clearly indicated that the whole Kuru dynasty would be killed in that great battle. Beginning with the grandsire, Bhishma, down to the grandsons like Abhimanyu and others, including kings from many states of the world, all were present there, and all were doomed. The whole catastrophe was due to King Drupada because he encouraged the policy followed by his sons. Just do the Sanskrit for the last verse. Let's do the whole thing. Ananta-vijayam rājā kuntī-putro yudhiṣṭhiraḥ nakulaḥ sahadevaś Sughoṣa-and-Maṇipuṣpakau kāśyaś parameṣv-āsaḥ Śikhaṇḍī mahā-rathaḥ drṣṭadyumno virāṭaś satyakis cāparājitaḥ drupado draupadeyāścha sarvaśaḥ pṛthivī-pate saubhadraścha mahā-bāhuḥ śaṅkhān pṛthak. King Yudhiṣṭhiraḥ, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta-vijaya. And Nakulaḥ and Sahadevaś blew the Sughoṣa and Maṇipuṣpaka. That great archer, the King of Kāśī, the great fighter Śikhaṇḍī, dhṛṣṭadyumno, virāṭaś, the unconquerable sātyakiś, Drupada, the sons of Drupado, and others, O king, such as the mighty armed son of Saubhadraś, all blew their respective conch shells. Om jnana-timirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam yena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Okay, so I have with me today my special guests, Dana and Peter. So what do you guys get from that verse?
Victory was part of the Pandavas, and there was just a play needed to happen, but the outcome was already told. What was going to happen?
Yeah. Here we've switched back to Sanjaya speaking, O king. He's speaking to Dhritarashtra. He's recounting to him or accounting to him about what's happening on the battlefield. And at this point, the army of the Pandavas are responding with their conch shells. And here we hear a description of the great fighters and personalities who are on the side of the Pandavas. Previously, we heard about the personalities on the side of the Kauravas, and that was related by Duryodhana, mentioning them by name, pointing them out to Dronacharya, his commander-in-chief. Here we see the layout of the Pandava force, the great personalities, related through the speaking of Sanjaya to Dhritarashtra, the blind king. And notably, these personalities all appear blowing conch shells, which is the symbol of Lord Vishnu. And so the symbolism of these personalities bearing the conches and blowing them, and straight after Lord Kṛṣṇa blows his conch, is that they will be victorious because Kṛṣṇa mit uns, Kṛṣṇa is with them. What do you? What's your realization about conches and blowing conches, Peter? You took Lenny's conch, right, from the wedding, and you had it for the last 5 weeks. Yeah. What's your realization about conch shells and blowing them?
With some people, it takes them years to even be able to blow one, and sometimes they can't even blow one. And sometimes you've just got a talent for them, and yeah.
Maybe even from a previous life, huh? Okay, I'll tell you what, my conch shell, the Ananta-vijaya, is right there. See that orange chudder there? Yeah, we're going to pull that up. Yep, pull that up. And then unwrap it. If there's one thing I learned from studying Bhagavad-gita, it's that everyone who is anyone has a conch shell. If you've read Bhagavad-gita and you don't have a conch shell, did you really read it? Okay, you want to give us a demo of blowing the conch shell? Ananta-vijaya? No pressure, just live on the internet in front of millions of people. Epic.
Awesome.
Yep, that's the sound of the conches blowing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and that was the symbolism that Kṛṣṇa, Lord Vishnu, is with the Pandavas. Of course, the other guys also blew their conch shells, but their conch shells are not described as transcendental as the conch shells of Arjuna and Kṛṣṇa are. So wherever there is Kṛṣṇa, and wherever there is the great archer Arjuna, there is victory, morality. This is the 18th chapter. Morality, victory. What's the other one? Let's have a look. It's in the 18th chapter of the Gita. Right at the end, Sanjaya, who began the conversation, concludes the conversation. It's a spoiler alert if you're following along verse by verse all the way to the end. Let's do find in page. How do I even do that? I reckon here. Find on page and look for morality. It's the very last verse of the Bhagavad-gita, 1878. Wherever there is Kṛṣṇa, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. Epic. What's the word used for morality? Niti. Okay. Like the Niti Shastra.
Niti Shastra, yeah.
Yep. The word used there is niti, this book here. Niti. Classify me as one of the neo-smartas, but here's the Sri Chanaka Niti. It means like morality, moral kind of guidance. Ancient sense for modern success. This book is called. It's by Patita Pavana Prabhu.
Yes.
Prabhupada disciple who's famous as one half of the Maituna twins, right?
Yes, correct.
With Abhaya Mudra Mataji.
Yes, correct.
Anything else you want to add to today's broadcast?
No, when you were reading the 18,
Jump in.
when you were reading the 18, you know, where it says, whatever Kṛṣṇa is and Arjuna is opulence.
Mm-hmm.
That is, it's incredible to have opulence, whatever Kṛṣṇa is. So you have like the certainty, wherever Kṛṣṇa is, and wherever you are, and Kṛṣṇa is with you, there's opulence.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Kṛṣṇa himself is morality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as human beings, also have morality, because Kṛṣṇa is morality. So we have to be guided by morality as well, because Kṛṣṇa himself is morality.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
I mean, Kṛṣṇa encourages Arjuna in his action on the battlefield by saying that I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and there's nothing that I have to achieve or attain in this world, and yet still I'm doing my duty. Why? Because yad acharati shreshtas tad tad eve taro jana. Whatever actions a great man performs, the common man follows. So, for that reason, even Kṛṣṇa himself lays down dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam, the religious principles of those laws laid down by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this idea that opulence always follows, you know, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, follows Madhava, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's no conflict between chanting Hare Krishna, chanting the holy names of the Lord, which is the prescribed process of self-realization for this age of Kali, and making material advancement. You know, I got a letter from some lawyers saying that you know, ISKCON relies on receiving money from charitable donations. What a philosophical deviation that statement is. ISKCON relies on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if people give money to ISKCON, well, that's for their benefit. It's not that we need it. It's like this idea of Kṛṣṇa doesn't need your dal and chapatis. Like, you offer them to the Lord, but he doesn't need them. And in the same way, people give the money, but they don't, we don't need it. Kṛṣṇa is sustaining all of the three worlds. So simply depend on him. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam eko bahunam yo vididati kaman. Amongst all the living beings, one of them reigns supreme, and he supplies the needs and desires of all. So trust in him, my dear friend. This verse here from Bhagavad-gita chapter 6 has always been my kind of go-to, and it stopped me from deviating out of devotional service and just being like, oh, I'll just give the whole thing up. It's, I think, 628. Oh, okay, let's use Find in Page again. Find in Page, Study of the Vedas. It's in chapter 6, I'm pretty sure. Study of the Veda. Nope. Okay, in that case, it's probably 828. Bhagavad-gita. Let's try 828. 828. Yeah, here it is. Do you want to read this one?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you read this. Jump into the camera so people can see.
A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all this, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode.
Yeah, exactly. See, this is the difference between being a business, like a mundane business, and accepting donations on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If you're a business, you respond to what your customers tell you to do, you know, and they're paying you the money, so they run the show, and you are a dancing monkey for the, you know, the customers, the people who are paying you. This is something that happens to artists, actually. To give you an analogy, you put out your first album, no one's ever heard of you, you're in your garage, you're doing whatever you want, and you're just like making creative, you know, and it sounds like nothing anyone's ever heard before. You put your album out, and then people love it, they buy it, you get a hit single #1, you go on tour, you're going around doing all this stuff, people love it. Then you bring out your second album and you want to do something completely different. You want to follow your muse, and then people are hating it. They're like, no, we don't want that. We want, you know, the first album part 2. Do the same thing again. And it's like the fans, you know, are asking you to do, you know, play the song off the first album, and you don't want to do it. And you're like, now you got fans, now you got a problem. Same thing with a business. They pay you the money. You rely on the money. So therefore you have to do what they say. You become a dancing monkey. And that's the problem with like receiving, and this is the Brahmanas, they receive the donations and, you know, the charity on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But if they think that that's what's sustaining them, then they lose their way, because they stop responding to the Shastra and they start responding to like public opinion. Public opinion starts to tell them, no, we don't agree with this, so therefore you should change it and do something different. And then you start to do what the people want, because now you're worried about losing the money that's coming in. And that's how the whole thing becomes twisted. But, you know, here in this verse, in 6:20, is it 6:26? 6:36? 6:36, I think it was. One who takes this path of devotional service is not, 6:28, is not bereft, the last verse in 8:28. Not bereft of the results derived from doing all these other things, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, pursuing philosophical or fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end he reaches the supreme eternal abode. So you've got to be careful not to be distracted by the heavenly things along the way.
I think the prescription is quite simple, you know. Perform devotional service and leave it to Krishna, because at the end of the day, it's by his will everything is moving. And why should we be worried? And we have to have full trust in him, and he will move, he will change whatever he wants to do, because at the end of the day we should be the dancing monkeys under the will of Krishna, rather than being and dancing monkeys under the will of Maya. That is completely two different worlds. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and so to bring it to the modern application, which is where I spout anti-vax rhetoric, it's funny to me how simply applying a Shastric lens to the modern world is now considered to be anti-vax rhetoric by a large percentage of people. It just goes to show how effective this campaign has been. So, in the name of retaining donations and, you know, relations and things, going along with discriminating against devotees on an arbitrary basis. This is the point here. It's nothing to do with like vaccines or any of the kind of talking points that you get given in the social media or in the mainstream media. The point is that discriminating between devotees on a basis that's not found in the Shastra is ashastric. And when you do that because you're worried that if you don't do that, you're going to lose your funding and your income, then you have deviated, because you're no longer driven by dharma, irrespective of the outcome. Perform your duty for the sake of performing your duty, and never be attached to not performing your duty. So as leaders in Krishna consciousness, we discriminate based on the categories of discrimination that we are given in the Shastra. And if somebody comes and gives us some category of discrimination that's not in the Shastra and says, now you discriminate according to this, and we look at it and it's actually adharmic. For example, refusing to give prasadam to devotees, or taking them out of their services, or firing them from their positions in the Gurukula, or refusing them entry into kirtans. You know, they say, now you will do this thing. And if you don't do it, you know, you're going to face consequences, you're going to lose money and everything. A Krishna conscious leader's duty at that point is to say, I depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is sustaining me, and in fact, He is sustaining you. You think that you are giving money to us to sustain us, but the reality is that it is to your benefit that you give us the money and you become purified. We don't need the money. Krishna doesn't need the money. Krishna can sustain us. You watch what happens if you try to take everything away, because you are the one who will actually experience the misfortune. We will be fine. That's the duty of a Krishna conscious leader, because that signals to the people who are applying the pressure that this is Krishna consciousness and this is the actual reality of the structure of the world, and it signals to all the people who are watching that this is the way. And so that is the meaning of relying on Krishna, what that looks like. It means to resist the transformation of the categories of discrimination away from a shastric basis to a non-shastric basis, and one that is irreligious in its nature. Now notice that only incidentally has anything to do with vaccination, because that's just the basis that it was. But it could be anything. Imagine if it was like, well, it complicates things if I give other examples, but of course there is a nice material sounding explanation for why you should depart from the scriptures and do something that is adharmic. But no matter how good the explanation seems, it is a mirage in the desert, and if you leave the oasis and head out towards that mirage, you'll get lost in the desert. Yeah. Anything you wanted to add to that?
I think we need to have a complete faith, or we need to have a complete faith in the holy name and depend 108% in Krishna. We are fed, taken care by Him. So there is nothing else we should be worried. Of course, we need to perform our duties like Krishna says. You know, perform your duties, and Krishna will give you whatever it's required for us. And He is sustaining us. So why to worry about that? Because we tend to worry every time, you know, anything is happening in our life, we're full of worry, and then to the point that we don't even want to chant the holy name, and we contaminate by worry. But Krishna is reassuring us in every way possible, and not only the Shastras, but many gurus are reminding us, depend on Krishna, you know, He's the only sustainer of this world. Why to worry?
Yeah, that's, you know, and it's kind of like, because you can say, oh, it's easy for you to say that, Sitapati, and, you know, et cetera, and these are the reasons why we had to do it. But you notice that at the end of the day, all of that just sounds mundane. We have to do it because the government, the health, the this, the that, the other thing, the laws. It's like, yeah, okay, but there's nothing transcendental about that. See, transcendence is revealed and it's experienced in the moment where there is a clash between what seems to materially make sense and what the scriptures ask us to perform. And it's at that moment where the two of them become divided in this way and you have to pick a path. That's when you get to see the real power. You know, it's like, if you go along with it and bend the knee, then the world does seem mundane and it all makes sense materially. And then the fact that you violated the Dharma and went against Dharma seems like a detail. You know, and then explain, oh, you know, it's complicated and it's sophisticated and you have to be mature and you've got to do these things. And it all makes sense and everything, but it's just completely mundane. Whereas the path of transcendence is a radical departure from material consciousness. And so that path of like saying to the government, and to the, you know, the people giving donations and everything, we're not going to go along with this. And then they say, well, you have to because, you know, it's for health and safety and it's all good and everything. It's like, I get it. I understand all of those things, but we simply cannot do it because we are commanded to discriminate in this way and not commanded to discriminate in that way. So for you to require us to discriminate amongst the devotees in this way is against Dharma, and so thus we cannot do it. And we are immune to any type of argument that is, you know, speculative based on consequences, because we are commanded to do our duty without attachment to the results, without considering victory or defeat, profit or loss, happiness or distress, and to not be attached to not doing our duty. And what that does is it actually makes you immune to manipulation. Had Krishna conscious leaders taken that stance, they would have become heroic. That's the heroic stance. I said in 2021 that ISKCON's taking a position on vaccination is a philosophical deviation. Right down to the point where, you know, oh, we had to let these people go or exclude these people because we were commanded to by the government. Now, because we were commanded to by the government doesn't make it less of a philosophical deviation or not a philosophical deviation. Yes, you were commanded by the government to philosophically deviate, and then you did. And to say that, well, because the government or because of the consequences of the health and safety, any of these arguments are actually further philosophical deviations as justifications because of the health. And let's say you believe the whole story of the whole thing, and it's like because of the health and safety. Well, that's an attachment to outcomes, and then you're going to act irreligiously based on your speculation about the outcome. Or if you do it because the government told us to, you've now replaced the authority of the scripture with the authority of the government, which is a philosophical deviation. Understandable. I mean, most of the human beings and most of the human organizations did it, but incompatible with Dharma and with Krishna conscious leadership. It's an abdication of leadership. There's no leadership to follow there. Here we're going to hear about real Krishna conscious leadership. On the battlefield, blowing the conches at this point, Arjuna will have a breakdown and go into the existential crisis and come out of it as a savage. He will actually analyze the outcomes and say, lots of people are going to die, and then Krishna says it doesn't matter. So you say, oh, if we didn't exclude the devotees and force people to take the experimental mRNA injections, then people would die, etc., etc. It's like, that's actually not a valid argument. As we will hear in Bhagavad-gita, that arguing on that basis is it's a philosophical deviation. And then, you know, and the red flag is arriving at the conclusion that therefore we should discriminate against these devotees, kick them out. No prasadam for you. We don't want to see you here in the you know, temple room taking prasadam, or don't come to the Ratha Yatra, don't come on Harinam. And then, you know, going even further into that world of like, there's a wrong time and wrong place for doing Harinam. Oh, it's a philosophical deviation. It's a philosophical deviation. So there you go. That is your... I don't know how this is like meant to be anti-vax rhetoric. They're not vaccinations. They're experimental mRNA injections. And what I've been talking about here is the philosophy and staying true to the philosophy. And the situation, it's an on-the-court modern example of the kind of situation Arjuna found himself in. And as we go through this first chapter, I'm going to keep relating it back because it's so relevant. And if you read the Bhagavad-gita and you came into contact with the whole COVID scamdemic over the last few years and you didn't see the application, did you really read the Bhagavad-gita? Where is your conch shell? Param-vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. Total world victory of Hare Krishna. Thanks to my special guests today, Dana and Peter.
Hare Krishna.
Bhakta Peter, the conch blower.